right, let's move it on, shall we? Joining me on the phone line today, talk a little bit FCC stuff and the Supreme Court. Shaun McCutcheon joins us. Shaun, welcome, sir. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
Indeed. Sorry about the power bump there, man. We were 2 seconds away from putting you on the air, and off we went. So I think it's a sign, really. You know, I'm going to go learn. I'm going back to plumbing school. But before I do that, you are headed to see the Supremes, as it were. And I don't mean the Motown group. I mean those 9 cats in black robes. You versus the FCC. Tell us the story of how in the heck you ended up going to the Supreme Court.
Well, to begin with, I've been active in the local Jefferson County and Alabama state Republican parties for years, and I've been working with others in clubs and committees, including Tea Parties, to find out how we can start to elect better candidates and leaders. And through the process, I met a woman named Shanna Cluck, the Alabama GOP communications director, and she invited me up to some Reagan parties in Washington, D.C., and at those events, I met some excellent Tea Party and PAC lawyers, including Dan Backer of DB Capital Strategies. And also the Alabama GOP introduced me to these extremely complex campaign finance limits. So I retained Dan and some other lawyers for legal advice on options concerning these ridiculously complicated and confusing statutes which make no sense to an individual person. That's pretty much how it got started.
Now, one of the things you can argue here is that there's a limit right now over 2 years over $123,000, and that violates First Amendment free speech rights. It's interesting because when you get up into those kind of numbers, they always think it's the Wall Street fat cats and the big guys trying to get their folks into whatever office it is they're interested in. But you're coming along and you're saying, no, I am not particularly interested in doing that. I'm more interested in the guy right now or the gal that doesn't have a snowball's chance against a democratically controlled, well, everything at this point.
Yeah, this process could of raising aggregate limits, which are sum total limits to the number of candidates. It can help any candidate in any party, Republicans, Democrats, or Independents, anyone really. But the point is, it's going to could potentially allow individual donors to sponsor more numbers of candidates. It's about the number of candidates and the total sum, not the base limit. It's important to understand what the aggregate limit is and what the case is about. It's about the number of candidates that we can donate. As far as the fat cat arguments and all of that, they're looking at the whole thing backwards, because what they ought to be talking about or thinking about is the fact that it costs a lot of money to get elected to these offices, and that price is going up, not down, because of the cost of advertising, campaign staffs, all those things. You're not going to reduce the cost of getting elected to a federal office. So the issue is, how are they going to raise the money to get elected, not how much it costs, because that's not something from a practical election committee standpoint that we can change. The costs have gone up, they're going up, so where are they getting the money? That's the question you need to ask. And this case is about individual people being able to donate to more numbers of candidates.
And what is somebody's problem with that? I mean, people, like anybody who bucks the status quo even a little bit, you get stereotyped. You've been stereotyped. It's amazing how folks love to throw those around without looking at all the details. You are apparently, at least according to what the rumors are out there, a heartless billionaire trying to corrupt the system. I didn't know you could corrupt the system any further, actually. But, are you in fact, sir, now that we have you on the hot seat, are you in fact a heartless billionaire trying to buy elections and corrupt the system?
Well, I think the billionaire thing is just extremely hilarious. I get a big kick out of it. But, in America, if I want to be a billionaire and I want to work to be that shouldn't really be a problem, should it? I mean, why is it so bad to be a billionaire is what I would say. But I'm not one. But, again, this is about the number of candidates that individuals can support. And that's the important thing. It's a freedom of speech, and there's no magic number, whether it's the 17th or 18th candidate. You have primaries, you have potential runoffs. There's lots of federal candidates. I mean, people from Texas can't even donate to all their House candidates. It's not about a base limit, so there's the corruption argument just doesn't really get there on aggregate limits.
Why would anybody care about I guess, and this is, maybe I'm showing my ignorance here. It's been a while since I've had my head in that particular realm of discussion, but why would anyone care about the number of candidates someone chooses to support? I mean, it's kind of the equivalent of having multiple yard signs in your front yard during an election season.
Well, the only people I know that cared about that a long time ago was the people in Congress that passed some of these laws. And it appears to me that the laws probably favor incumbents and keeping the status quo. So I don't know, to answer your question. I don't know who would favor that or why. To me, freedom does not corrupt, and it is a question of individual rights, that are very important.
Well, it seems to me at its base, what we're talking about here is limiting a person's right to choose, and even if it's $1 or it's a couple of $1,000, $2,000, you send $2,000 to somebody's campaign, it's going to help, but they're certainly not going to turn to you down the road and say, oh yeah, by the way, Shaun, you gave me $2,000, so what kind of favors do you need? $2,000 really isn't that much when you're talking campaign donations.
Right, it's not. I mean, hopefully they can buy an ad on your radio show for that. So, I doubt they're going to buy many TV ads for that amount. That's the point. It takes a lot of money to get elected to these offices. And if you're, say, a new candidate, the only people you have to turn to are your individual contacts and friends, because the institutional money is going to flow towards the candidates, and they have more time to raise the money, in the 2-year cycle. So you've got to factor the time versus money in there, and then who can potentially donate to the candidates. Obviously most of the established corporations and institutions in the area are going to donate to the incumbents. That's what they historically do. So, and they're limited to the same 2,600 or 5,000, but you see, it's in the number of people that you can get to donate, and the short time frame you have as a challenger. You're up against a lot of odds. So that's why it's important for individuals out there that are active in politics and donors to be able to donate to more candidates.
It seems to me, Shaun, like what's bugging them is that you're threatening to kind of upset the apple cart here a little bit. People that have power and enjoy power want to hang on to it. And so you get a local candidate, somebody who wants to be Mr. Smith going to Washington, or Mrs. Smith, as the case may be. You're absolutely right. They don't have the vast amounts of cash to draw on that one of these incumbents do. And it seems to be that the incumbents are just saying, hey, you know what? We're going to hang on to our stuff and make sure that no one except the people we want manages to make their way into this office.
Well, there's a lot of depth to the case. There's a lot of things to look at. We've only touched on a few. Also for the donors, you have the issues of the committees and the PACs and donating directly to the candidates. And some of these rules they have influence certain way. And for the donor, it may be more advantageous to donate directly to the political committee or the candidate as opposed to having to work through a PAC. But certainly we want to be able to work through PACs. But I don't know what bothers them, if anything does.
And I suppose my question here, too, what's the FEC's take on this? Is this just simply a regulation that you're challenging, or has someone jumped up and said, okay, this horrible person is coming to do terrible things to a system that's been working very well for those on the inside? What's the FEC side of this?
Well, I don't think the FEC's really been saying what you just said. I think that the press has probably been saying that, but the FEC is just saying that, to the best of my understanding, that they just don't really have the authority to review these things, so that's why it sort of went up an appellate ladder.
Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't think the FEC was saying, the FEC was saying this, but I was certain that there are those out there that say you're just coming to destroy what seems to be a working political system. The problem with this...
Well, wait a second. I don't have many friends or contacts that say that the system is working.
No, that's exactly right.
I know say we need to change the system for the better. They're not saying that the system works. So
no, that's exactly it. You're saying the system doesn't work. The people that for whom the system is working, and there's precious few of those folks that the system's working for, they want to keep it as is. They're worried about you changing the status quo is where I'm going with that.
Well, they might be, but it's our constitutional freedom to be able to do these things. So, it's basically we're back to the First Amendment. It's our very important freedom of speech. That's the issue.
Yeah, and the First Amendment is certainly under so many attacks right now, I think. And I guess where are you at in the suit at the moment? How far along have you gotten?
Well, they've submitted all the legal arguments. The other side has to submit some legal arguments in a couple of weeks. A lot of briefs have been filed, then they'll do the oral arguments in October, and then a couple of months after that, they'll issue their decision. So we're just waiting on October, but I would assume they would complete this by the end of the year.
In your case here with the FEC, is this simply because we need them to weigh in, we need them to be present in the midst of all of this, instead of saying, it's really not our bailiwick to interfere here?
Well, the FEC regulates all campaigns and elections, and they enforce the campaign laws that exist. So anything involving campaign finance has got to be heard by the FEC. So, as far as the due process, that is another very important right that we can't afford to lose. But this is the only process, working through the FEC, you could get something like this done. I doubt Congress is going to pass any changes that are going to promote competition or freedom. So, there's really no other option.
Indeed. Now, if you are successful, let's say that the courts rule in your favor, do you think that this will actually result in a better election process, or are they going to find a way to put another stick in the spokes, as it were?
Well, they'll always be looking out. I can't answer that one, but I certainly think it'll be better and it'll be better not, like I said, for Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, because we should be able to get more qualified managerial type candidates onto the playing field. We should be able to have more candidates in the process, because you'll be able to raise money for more candidates and create some competition and hopefully a more exciting process to select leaders and things like that.
Now, as you've done this, once the Supreme Court rules, and I have to admit I'm not too up on how the Supreme Court works, but once they rule, does this go into, let's say they rule in your favor, does this go into effect immediately, or when would this option, become essentially legal? How long do we have? And I'm thinking in terms not so much of 2014, but in terms of the midterm elections.
Well, I think you would have to ask Dan Backer the legal questions. I really don't know how that works. I would assume it would be pretty quick, but I don't know that.
Fair enough, sir. Well, Shaun, we appreciate your time today. Is there a place we can go to follow what you're doing and to offer you whatever support we can, and just kind of keep in touch with the work you're doing out there?
For the time being, you can go to dbcapitalstrategies.com.
Outstanding, sir. Mr. McCutcheon, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, sir. Hopefully the next time we have you on the air, the power will not disappear on us. At least that's what I'm hoping for, sir.
Well, hopefully y'all get a new, bigger grid out there.
There we go.
Coal fire plants.
We could use one of those, let me tell you. Thank you so much, sir. We'll be back after this with